that I don't really think there's a job called web designer. I actually think that's made up. I don't think that's a real thing. And let me tell you why. To have a good website, you need to have someone who's an expert at design from a user experience perspective. You need to have someone who's able to write great copy. You need to have a
Mm.
great developer who can build you something that's lightweight, fast, and functional across lots of different platforms and lots of different devices.
This is
You need
Right Media Group Chronicles, your shortcut to sharper ideas, smarter moves, and creative breakthroughs. Let's roll.
Today I'm joined by Tim Woda, founder and CEO of White Peak. His agency was named one of the top 20 digital marketing agencies in the US. Most recently, he launched Maximize OS, a new service designed to help businesses get more from the traffic they already have. Tim, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Tim, when we spoke earlier, you mentioned how events like 9/11 and the financial crisis shaped your mindset as a leader. Can you walk us through your journey and why you started White Peak in 2016?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I've been a serial entrepreneur since like the late 90s, right? So, you've seen a lot of ups and downs in the market. And I just by sheer luck or not really thinking things through properly, ended up starting a lot of businesses during times when others were probably would think better of the idea, right? So shortly after 9/11, I was involved in starting a business. And by shortly, I mean like during that time frame, like that year. Same thing with when we had the Great Recession, and then when we had COVID, like lots of different monumental moments when things were sketchy. I was in the process of starting businesses. And what that allowed me to do, without really realizing it, is kind of enter into whatever space I was in at a time when you really had to have your act together. You couldn't just, get started and ride a wave and be successful. You really had to button things up. Well, when I started White Peak in 2016 because I had been involved in an exit from another business and I wasn't sure what I was going to do next. I was still kind of thinking it through. And a contact who knew me from the business we had just sold, reached out to me and said, "Hey, Tim, would you do our marketing?" I said, "No, because I'm not going to work for someone else. I'm more of an entrepreneur. But I'll be happy to help you kind of figure out your marketing plan and your strategy while I'm getting my business together, whatever that is going to be." And one thing led to another. I realized that this business couldn't really execute very well despite having a huge team because they really weren't marketers, right? And that kind of left me with the idea of, hey, maybe I should start an agency. And so I did that. And then right after, just a short time after that, we know that COVID came about. But it's just been interesting because having started businesses during times when things were really lean and challenging, it's allowed me to apply those principles to, White Peak and then for our clients. So we tend to focus on the fundamentals and getting things right and not on cheap, easy traffic and riding waves. We focus a lot on fundamentals.
Even though you started your business or your ventures in such a difficult time, I mean, you've had, is it three successful exits so far?
Yeah, so out of the four businesses that I was involved in that I started or was on the founding team, three of the four had successful exits. It's funny because the very first business was the one I learned the most from because I started it right after the telecommunications reform passed here in the United States, and the dot-com bubble was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I just thought I was the greatest entrepreneur known to mankind because like, wow, I was being so successful. And then of course the dot-com bubble burst and all these businesses came crashing down, including my own. And I had to scratch my head saying, well, what did I do wrong? Well, what I did wrong was I just rode the wave. I didn't focus on the fundamentals necessary to sustain a business when things got hard. And so I think that, that really shaped how I approach things moving forward.
So, what's the one thing you've done at White Peak that you never seen work at your previous ventures?
Well, I wouldn't say that I didn't see it work at previous ventures, but I didn't see it work in the first venture because I didn't pay any attention to it. Since then, what we've really, really been focused on is quality over quantity. It's really easy to scale things once you know what works, right? So, for example, we could drive, 1 billion people to our website, but if those people don't convert into an actual paying client that stays with us for years on end, then I haven't really perfected the product, the service, what we're selling. And so what we really aim to do is focus on every stage of the funnel, making sure that we're monetizing our activities and our relationships to the nth degree so that we can then truly know whether or not a channel is productive or not. So I would say that's kind of our big thing, our big jam, and that what we preach with our clients, right? Is like, let's get it right before we try to go big.
Mm.
Marketing agencies are not cheap, right? Like, I'll just be the first one to say, like, when someone makes a decision to hire White Peak or any agency, they're spending real money. And I like to equate it to rocket fuel. So a
Mhm.
good agency can help your business get from where it is to where you want to go really, really fast. But that rocket fuel is expensive. And if you're pointed in the wrong direction, you just spent a whole lot of money to get to the wrong place really fast. And so you got to
Yeah,
make
that's a
sure you're
very
dialed in.
interesting analogy.
You got to be aimed correctly. And so making sure that you know what you're aiming for is just everything.
I see. I mean, you talked about obviously agencies being expensive, and I think you're right in that aspect. But from what I've seen in the market as well, there's a lot of startups that don't charge a lot,
Mhm.
and obviously they don't deliver results. So have you ever had burned customers come from those marketing agencies?
I would say that most of our clients
Yeah.
come from someone from an agency, and we'll call them an agency. I think that's pretty generous in some cases.
Hmm.
In many cases, there's such a large freelancer market
Hmm.
today,
Yeah.
in this gig economy. Everybody's a specialist and they say, "Oh, I
Hmm.
can build your website, or I can fix your conversion, or I can do your email, or I can do your SEO." And so often companies that are driven by economics, they try a low cost alternative first. And what they find out is that, as you point out, they don't get the results that they're expecting or that they really need. And they end up with a much worse ROI for that, because they don't get what
If
they're
any.
looking for, if any, right? I mean, a great example of this, I think, is web design, right?
Hmm.
So we do
Okay.
tons and tons of web design because everybody has to have a website today, right? It's
Hmm.
like, you have to. And what happens is, I think businesses don't realize that I don't really think there's a job called web designer. I actually think that's made up. I don't think that's a real thing. And let me tell you why. To have a good website, you need to have someone who's an expert at design from a user experience perspective. You need to have someone who's able to write great copy. You need to have a great developer who can build you something that's lightweight, fast, and functional across lots of different platforms and lots of different devices. You need to have someone who's excellent at SEO, understands the technical aspect of it, who can help influence the build, but at the same time, they're able to influence the copy and the design because they're coming at it from, hey, how are we going to make sure this site is visible? So you've got copywriters, you've got SEO experts, you've got developers, you've got UX designers. There you got four different skill sets. Now, someone's going to come to the table and say they are an expert at all four of those things. I have some land to sell you in a swamp. Like, I mean, come on, this is crazy. Like, they're just not going to exist in the same person. And so what happens is when people go out and hire a freelancer or a really small agency, they get a bunch of generalists and they don't get. We get most of our clients, as you point out, from people who got burned.
Mhm.
The trick is to figure out where can you get an agency that's not overcharging you and exploiting you, but they are set up with specialists. Just because someone charges a lot doesn't mean they have specialists. So you got to be really careful to vet agencies to make sure that different people are on the team who have this knowledge of the particular discipline that they're going to need to employ.
So, if you were starting a new agency today with all of your experience that you've had, what would you do differently?
Yeah, so when we first started the agency, I really wanted to focus exclusively on search engine optimization because that was an area that I had a lot of experience with and a lot of success with. And candidly, I had no interest in designing and building websites. I was like, that's a pain. I don't want to do it. And so when we launched the business, we didn't do that work. That was a mistake because the fact of the matter is every single business needs a website. And so I missed out on a lot of clients that I could have had, number one. And number two, I could have made the SEO campaigns way, way easier. So many times someone's coming to the table with a site that even if it's aesthetically attractive, it's built like a piece of garbage. And it was built using some template someplace that they purchased or just really bad code or, freelancer or something did it. And so now you're trying to fix something that's really terrible and it takes longer for the client to get good results. In many cases, it would have been better to say, okay, look, let's go back to the drawing board and let's iterate on your website. Let's redo this website so that it's built for success.
Mhm.
So I wish I had done that. I wasted about 2 years of our business, opportunity by not doing web design right from the get-go.
Do you think web design is still very huge to this day?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think, you know, right now, I think it's probably more important than ever because, so many people are always, businesses are always looking to cut costs. So they're looking for freelancers. They've got a cousin or a nephew or someone who says, oh, I can do that for you. So small businesses often fall prey to overpromise and underdeliver. And I think the trend is the technology providers are starting to move in the direction of AI built websites, right? Sign up for this service and 10 minutes later, we'll launch you a website. There is no evidence that those websites are going to be amazing just yet. Maybe they don't get there, but I think, there's still those promises that underdeliver out there more so than ever before. So I think that's an important factor. And the other reason why I think it's an important factor is that so many websites are built and designed, and their architecture and the content that's on their site are built for a day and age where top of the funnel SEO was the way people were going to get traffic. And as we are seeing consistently across reports, AI, artificial intelligence, is now answering the questions for people who are at the very top of the funnel. And so websites need to be reimagined of how am I going to deal with this new landscape where I'm not going to get visitors to my site who are looking how to, answer a question, but instead they're a little further down in the funnel.
So
Sure.
how do you personalize and not use a cookie cutter
Yeah.
template?
I'm a big American football fan, right? So I love college football. And the way I like to think of this is that any good team has a playbook that they have practiced over and over again. They know what plays are available to them in their playbook. Okay. But a good coach, a good coaching staff, when they come to a game, they have analyzed the situation at hand, right? The unique competitive environment that they're in. And they have to be really good at choosing which plays from that playbook to run at which time. So they're essentially always asking themselves, what's the next best decision to make, right? But they're operating from predetermined plays that they've run over and over again until so they became second nature to the team. Too many companies, they have a playbook and they go into every single game, if you will, and they run the exact same plays in the exact same order for every single opponent. And then they
Like
don't
it's
under
predictable.
that makes no sense, right? Every client is totally unique. And that's the only thing that they all have in common is that they're totally unique. They have different competitive environments, different market conditions. Their customers have different issues. And even if you're operating within the same niche, let's take you're a dentist office, or you are any local business and you're in Los Angeles. How is that the same as if you are in Indianapolis?
Mhm.
Your competitors are at different situations and the customers have different pain points. And same thing with software. If you're a SaaS software company that you market your marketing services to SaaS companies, are we trying to say there's not a difference between a SaaS business that sells services to accounting firms versus, you know, a lead generation software? They're just different, right? So my point is every client is different. Every situation is different. And so you have to be able to operate with a playbook, but you can't run the same plays for every single client. And I think from a White Peak perspective, that is one of the things that we pride ourselves on, that we ask every single day for every single client, what's the next best decision to make for this client? And the net result is, even though we've got all the same plays from client to client, every campaign is unique.
I think what you touched point on timing is also very, very important. Same like using the tactics. At what time do you use them? What's the situation they're currently facing? So yeah, I think that's very great.
Yeah.
So how do you help clients stand out in categories that are very crowded? So crowded market.
Yeah. So unfortunately, based upon what I just said, there's not a one size fits all answer. Depending upon the businesses, we've done a variety of different things. So in some businesses, some industries, what we have found is that we need to find an individual within that company and help them build a personal brand. Okay. A
Mm,
great example of this might be a law firm that has a particular area of specialization. We have found time and time again that by picking a partner at that law firm and marketing that partner to really be the expert or the smartest kid in the class about a particular topic, by elevating an individual within the company, it becomes a scenario where the entire business moves forward. For other businesses, that's not really appropriate. And what we have focused on is a particular aspect of their value proposition, which is different than their competitors. And in many cases, it could be even their perceived weakness, turning it into a strength, right? So you might have a smaller business trying to compete a bunch of entrenched competitors. So we want to market them as boutique and
mhm.
they provide bespoke solutions and highly customized, great touch experience with key personnel, and suddenly that weakness is become the
Comes with
reason why you would
strength.
say yes,
Yeah.
right? So every business is different. We just have to look at the landscape just like a good coaching staff would do going into a big game. We'd sit
Yeah.
back, we'd analyze the opponent, and we would say, okay, where do we see openings? And then we would build a plan based upon our market research and our competitive research.
So where would you say most agencies trip up when they try to scale way too quickly?
Yeah. So my experience is that in this space, you have to be really careful when and if, even if you're going to try to scale your business. So
Mhm.
what's funny is that as an agency, there's a lot of costs involved with running an agency. And if you want to scale your business bigger, at some point you're going to need more boots on the ground, more hands and feet to deliver work.
Mhm.
And that requires a fairly significant investment in headcount, right? What is common in our industry, and anyone who runs an agency knows exactly what I'm talking about. They choose almost always to provide some sort of white label service, or they go to the very freelancers that they're telling their clients not to hire, and they outsource work in an effort to have kind of a scalable capacity to deliver so
Mhm.
that they can scale before investing in hiring. Okay. So they want to kind of have their cake and eat it too. The problem with that is if I'm coming to you and I'm saying, look, whatever you do, don't go hire these, low cost offshore freelancers. It's that provide terrible work. But then I turn around and I hire them myself to deliver the
Mm.
work to you. Either I'm a liar, I'm a lunatic, or I just completely haven't thought this thing through. It's going to end badly. So too many agencies, even if they scale for a while, their ability to deliver quality work is really challenged.
Mhm.
So I think that's the biggest mistake that businesses make. They actually try to grow when perhaps what they need to do is to not grow. They might be better off saying, "No, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get better at what I do. I'm
Mhm.
gonna learn how to become more scalable. I'm gonna learn how to become more efficient." And without raising their and it's the same thing we help our clients do. Sometimes the goal isn't more revenue, the goal is more profit. And so if you can become better at delivering your services while bringing in the same amount of revenue, you're probably more profitable. And so I would say start by maximizing profitability.
Mm.
Become totally as profitable as you can, get every ounce of just wring it out, right? Now you're in a financial position to scale without outsourcing. You can say, okay, I'm going to bring on a new account manager. I'm going to bring on a new developer. I'm going to bring on a new writer. And then you have to be intentional about filling that person's calendar
Mhm.
as fast as you possibly can, right? So when we bring on a new copywriter, we go to all of our clients and we look for opportunities to do more copywriting for them. Because I want that person super
course.
freaking busy,
Yeah.
right? So, we're just very strategic in everything that we do. And some people would have a different approach. I get it. Ours is about making money. Like that's why I started the business, right? Like we've been in business 9 years and we've never come close to not being profitable in a month. And we've just continued to grow and grow and grow. And I'd rather do it slowly and know that it's going to be successful. I don't have a need to roll the dice. Like that's silly to me.
So where would you say White Peak is currently at in terms of growth?
Yeah, so we're having our best year ever. Oh,
Awesome.
which is better than last year, which was our best year ever, and it's and better than the previous year, which was our best year ever. So we're right on track to continue the trend that we've had in the past. I think what's been really great for us this year is we love the disruption that AI is introducing into the market.
Do you? I'm curious to hear
I
your
love
opinion.
it. I love chaos. Um, someone asked me one time, they said, Are you concerned that all the introductions of AI are going to replace you as an agency? And my answer was, absolutely not. I'm going to replace other agencies that don't know how to utilize AI for their clients' advantage.
I like that
So
answer.
I saw it as I was like, this is amazing because it's creating opportunity, right? So we've introduced new products. So as you mentioned, we launched Maximize OS a few months ago. We've got other products, services. I call them products, but they're services
Mhm.
that we're going to be launching as the year ends. And we've got more that we're going to launch next year. So for us, it gives us an opportunity to expand our wallet share with our existing clients, sell them more stuff,
Mhm.
it gives it, and which is great, right? Because the cost for acquisition is zero because I already have them as a client. So it's basically just adding to making our profit margin go through the roof when we
Upselling,
can do.
yeah.
Yeah. The second thing is all the other agencies that are sitting around saying, gosh, I'm not sure how we should respond. We've been preparing for this time for about 2 years. So about 2 years ago, we started developing services and figuring out how to bundle them and testing them so that we had a plan when the timing was right to say, okay, let's launch this new service. Let's launch this new service. A lot of agencies are into developing software,
Mhm.
and then selling software. I would rather not do that because I don't want to be an agency and a software company. I'd
Mm.
rather develop, if I'm going to develop software and technology, I'd rather use it in-house, and let that be a competitive advantage for us. That's just our approach. It's not right or wrong. It's just, we just have created these models where the future for us we think is really bright because we've got multiple service offerings queued up that depending upon how the market goes we can launch something. We had services that we developed and we're ready to launch, and we found that the market got too competitive in that space too fast, and the margins on it were plummeting very quickly. So we developed an entire service and we never launched it, right? um
Okay.
it was
You're
like
just
the
waiting for the perfect time.
Yeah, so it's all about being ready
Mhm.
and being prepared and, not reacting, but trying to control our future by being able to react, but not like in a panic mode, if you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. So where would you say AI is useful right now personally for your own agency, and where is it just a hype?
Yeah. So I'll tell you where I think it's most useful for us is in the development of new products, right? Because
Services.
yeah, just in having new services that we could offer, and there's a handful of different ones there, but in terms of operationally, I think that one of the hardest parts about our business is that when we have writers, our writers are quasi journalists. I mean, they're really good at going out and doing the research necessary to write well for a client. But even when they do that well, they're still not the subject matter expert in their field. What we have found that AI has allowed us to do on the writing side isn't so much that we can outsource the writing, because I don't think that's where we want to be right now, but it's on the fact checking, right? So I can use multiple different AI systems, and because they don't always get everything right, and we can take content that was created by uh, a writer, put it into these systems and say, go fact check the crap out of
Mm.
this, right? And come back. And so now we're delivering content to clients who have highly specialized areas of expertise, doctors, lawyers, surgeons, who you would think that they're going to need to make a lot of edits in content, even if the best writer writes it. And they're coming back telling us, oh my gosh, this is amazing because we've used AI to fact check things so well. So I'd say that's one area in particular that's been operationally really useful for us. And then the other area is really using AI bots. So using bots as workers where I can spend an afternoon with my team and build out an AI worker bot that's going to repeat tasks for us and let it run in the background with some human oversight. And now I've freed up someone from doing something repetitive to focusing on things that a bot couldn't necessarily do, which is critical thinking.
No, that's absolutely incredible. So it's like removing the mundane manual tasks that can be automated. Clearly, you're taking advantage of the AI, and that's incredible. But you're still not removing that little human touch that you've got that oversees the bot per se.
Yeah, the AI doesn't replace humans. AI should, if I, I'm sure we'll get it wrong sometimes, should allow the humans, if you've hired good people, to focus on critical thinking and strategy, not on repetitive tasks like, keyword research and, optimizing campaigns. We need to be able to provide oversight, right? To make sure that those things are done really well, but we don't need to have someone sitting there like an assembly line just turning a screw over and over again. That's just silly, right? We can have machines.
So, for someone who's not technical, what does it actually do, and why does it matter to your client?
Yeah, so Maximize OS is not a software. It's not something for clients to log into. It's a name that we've given to what we think of as an ROI operating system, right? It's a
Uh-huh.
fully done for you service that White Peak can provide to a business that really focuses on the middle of the funnel down past the transaction. Okay. So someone comes to your website, it's not focused on how they got to your website. Let's be clear. It's what happens after they get to your website. This is the area where I say that not everyone needs more traffic, but everyone needs better monetization. Everyone needs better conversion. Everyone needs to compress the sales timeline. Everyone needs to maximize customer lifetime value, right? Like these are things that no business doesn't need. So what Maximize OS does is that we have these categories of actions and services that we provide that when cobbled together give you genuinely really complete life cycle marketing. So for example, when someone comes to your website, we want to make sure that we have the absolute best messaging, right? So we include conversion optimization. There's nothing unique about conversion optimization. It's been around forever. You could do it in-house or you could hire someone, you could buy some technology, but you'd have to invest money in that and either pay someone to do it or allocate resources with staff to do that. So we handle that, we take that off the table. Now, the other thing that would be great is we know that website personalization goes a very, very long way. So the example I like to give is this. If one person, if you, let's say your business sells multivitamins, right? You're a vitamin store, supplement store, and you've got this vitamin and someone runs a search that says best multivitamin for seniors, and they come to that web page. Well, what if that web page matched that search, right? It said, the best multivitamin for seniors, and it had pictures of seniors having, who are healthy and happy and vibrant, right? But someone else comes along and they run a search that says best multivitamin for athletes, right? If they come to that page, they're not going to buy, right? So what we want is that page to respond to the search so that it's showing pictures of, athletes performing and it says best multivitamin for athletes. And the benefits and the features are corresponding to the search, right? So not only are we doing conversion optimization, we're doing personalization on key pages for our clients, right? So right
Wow.
out of the gates, we know we're going to cause more actions to happen. So
Yeah.
then further down into the pipeline, we know that some of these people are going to be sitting on the fence. So we want to introduce into the user experience what we call nudges, right?
Mm.
And so, many of us have seen this if we've ever booked a hotel online. It might be something like, it might say 3 rooms available, but then there's a little thing that says 9 people are looking at this page. and you say to yourself, "Oh my gosh, I only have a 1 in 3 chance of getting this product. I better book now." Right? And that would be just one example of many types of nudges that we can provide. So we introduce lots of different on-site nudges. Obviously varies by client depending upon what's appropriate, but we are trying to encourage activity. So we're trying to speed up the conversion time. So not just sell more, but sell
Hmm.
more faster, right? The third thing that we include, so we've got kind of that conversion and personalization, we've got nudges, is that we have hyper segmented follow-up marketing, right? So whether that be email or text message, as someone is getting into the site and they're interacting with your site and we're capturing, phone numbers or email addresses, we're looking very closely at what their history has been on the client's site.
Mm.
And so a great example would be if someone has looked at this vitamin, right, and they were a senior, we want to make sure that we're sending them email communications or text message communications with promotional offerings to buy the best vitamins for seniors. And the
Hmm.
messaging match that versus if they're an athlete. But if we see that suddenly this senior is also an athlete, we want to be able to change the messaging to market to senior athletes.
Wow.
We hyper segmentation, right? And then post sale, we want to be able to have campaigns that are tied into this based upon their history, their buying patterns, their traffic patterns that essentially are designed to upsell them to other products, to make them go from being a customer to being a loyal advocate for the product.
Hmm.
So we're tying all of this together in a done for you service. So it's a lot, right? It's a whole lot of stuff that people would historically have to hire a few people to do, or they'd have to hire by lots of software, or
Hmm.
fortune with agencies. And we have figured out a way to do this in house using technology that makes it super scalable so that we're able to deliver the service at about a third of the cost of what it would historically cost someone to engage an agency for something like this.
I think it's going to be an absolute game changer, this platform for sure. I mean, obviously we touch point a little bit on the nudges. Is that a platform, or shall I say a service rather, for e-commerce, or would you say it can also be for service based?
Yeah, so it works obviously great for e-commerce, right?
Yeah.
So, I gave you an example and that's a no-brainer. But this can also work for B2B businesses. So
Mhm.
we've got clients where the call to action is to book an appointment.
Mhm.
And we've got nudges that say 3 people are looking at this page. We only have 2 appointments left this week, right? And you're like, "Oh, well, I wanna meet someone this week," right? We can use nudges that are related to more along the lines of social proof. So let's say that a business is a service-based business, and there's no reason why when someone's looking at a service page on their website, they can't have social proof that's being introduced in real time that says, John from, Reno, just purchased the service, right? Like, I mean, there's countless different types of nudges we can use that are either designed to create urgency or they're designed to create credibility, right? Those tend to be the two levers that we like to pull: credibility, i.e., trust, or urgency.
No, that's brilliant. No, thank you so much for sharing that. So, what would you say is working really well for White Peak right now? And what would you say is the hardest part?
Well, the hardest part is really easy to answer. It's a pretty crowded space, right? Every
Hmm.
agency comes to the table and says, "We're going to change your world," right? And obviously that's not true. Not every agency is going to change your world. So I think the hardest part is to create differentiation. And we have our own secret sauce of how we do that. We're not really focused on getting the phone ringing off the hook. That's not where our goal is not to have 100 new leads a day as an agency. Ours is around converting leads that come in, right? So when we have someone in a conversation, we have a ridiculously high conversion percentage into a client, and then our lifetime value of the customer is huge. We keep them for, I mean, we've got clients that we acquired in our very first year in business, right? So, just like,
Wow.
the hardest part is creating the differentiation in a noisy market, I would say, for us. I mean, I think Other agencies might say something different. I think the easiest part for us is creating value. Like when we bring a client on, our very first actions that we take are helping the business owner and the marketers genuinely understand where they really are. Sometimes they're in a better spot than they think they are, and sometimes they're in a worse spot than they think they are. But we're trying to give them an accurate picture of where they are so that we can then say, all right, let's establish what the game plan is going forward. And there's very little question as to whether or not we showed improvement. So I think what's easiest for us is to go, here's where you are and here's where we took you to. We've got a client, for example, that came to us. They ranked on page one of Google pretty well, but that for like 200 and some odd, I don't know, 250-ish keywords on page one of Google, right? And today they rank for several 100,000 keywords. Like this client isn't going to wonder if they're doing better, right? Like I'm not at
Yeah.
risk of losing this client.
Yeah,
So getting actual results is pretty easy because I think we got a great team. Cutting through the noises.
I see. I really love hearing stories when agencies say that they're still working with the first client they closed on the first year of starting the agency. So
Yeah.
how did you ensure that obviously this client still stays with you?
Well, we're really committed to transparency.
Mhm.
So, we show a lot of data. My experience before starting White Peak was not working at agencies, right? I
Mm,
was involved in startups that grew and had success, and we hired and fired agencies. That's what we did.
I see.
Um, and what I found was that agencies cherry pick what they're going to show in order to put themselves in the best light.
Mhm.
And that, in my view, is operating from a position of fear. I'm
Mm,
afraid I'm going to lose the client. I'm afraid they won't see the value. I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of that. We are massively committed to having a very, very high level of transparency and very high level of partnership. And in a true partnership, not everything goes perfect all the time.
mhm.
Right. So using the example of college football as an example, if you win the game, that doesn't mean there weren't some plays where the opponent got the best of you. Right. You still won the game, but you have to acknowledge that your quarterback got sacked or maybe they scored a touchdown on you. And so, after the game, you need to be able to look at those areas where things didn't go well and say, okay, how do we improve on this? So one of the ways that we've been able to have so much success keeping clients is that we're radically transparent. And so when there's things that don't go well, we go, hey, there's this thing here. It didn't go as we expected. And because we're willing to tell you the truth all of the time, whether we like, the answer or not, when we say to a client, hey, we've got a plan and we think that this is how we're going to fix that, they
Mhm.
believe us, right? Because we're
Yeah.
credible. And so I think focusing on, being treated the way we would want to be treated, transparency, honesty goes a long way with clients. Like they're not always wondering what we're not telling them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they're not out to get you per se. I
Yeah,
think
they
that
they know we're on their team.
it's a very important point what you just mentioned because if you're transparent with your clients, you're building trust. It's not always going to be great. It's like a relationship, isn't it? It's not always going to be bright and flowers and roses, is it? There's going to be bad parts as well.
Yeah.
And I think you kind of need to be, as you said, transparent with your client.
We have had times where we've gone to a client and we said, "Listen, this month went terrible.
Mm,
We cannot find a whole lot of things to be excited about."
yeah.
And what's interesting is that I've been an entrepreneur for like over 20 years. I've never had an agency come to me and tell me that the month sucked. Never. And
Wow.
I can look at my numbers and go, something wasn't right. They'll put a positive spin on it and try to show me this and show me. And I'm like, yeah, but we sucked, right? Like it didn't work. And they would have been so much better off doing what White Peak does, which is to go to a client and go, man, this month we got our teeth kicked in. I don't want to
Yeah.
give you the impression that we didn't execute. We executed, but your competitor executed us.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not afraid they're going to say, well, we shouldn't have to pay for this. Hey, look, we're not perfect. Like sometimes your competitor will beat you. We're not focused on winning every single point, every single day. What we're focused on is at the end of the year, when you look back, are you wildly more successful than you would have been if you went with someone else or if you didn't hire us at all? And if the answer is yes, then we did a great job. And so we just, part of this is training customers to think maturely about things. But I think if you're honest with them and you treat them fairly, I think they tend to come along for the ride a lot easier.
Yeah. No, I see. Have you had any bad experiences as well in regards to you come to a client and you say, sorry, this man has been tough. Have you had situations where they unfortunately leave?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, we have. Not recently, but in the early days, we definitely did. They were actually not even about marketing campaigns. As I've
Yeah.
told you, when we first started the business, we didn't do website design.
Mm,
And so when we said, okay, we really have to do this because like everybody needs a website,
yeah.
right? We got started with that. We started selling the services before we had really perfected our processes. And so there was a couple situations, there was like two of them where we thought the process was going to go a certain way. It didn't go anything like that. The clients were not thrilled with where things went. The timeline was off. It was just train wrecks. And so for us, we just were really honest with the client. We were like, hey, look, this is didn't go well. So we'll give you your choice. We can either persist and get it right, or we'll refund you all of your money right now. And we will be happy to try to introduce you to some people that we think could do a good job for you. And so there were two instances. Like I said, we started the business in 2000, end of 2016. We're in like 2018 when we first got started, where we were like, yeah, that didn't go well. But since then, we kind of said, okay, don't take on any more clients until we really get this
Perfect.
process down.
Yeah.
We actually brought in some people who had, experience with this operationally, and that really helped us out a lot. So it's been
So
good so.
obviously we briefly touched point on you don't like 100 leads calling you and filling up your pipeline. So how do you ensure that you have consistent lead flow currently for White Peak?
Yeah, it's a great question. Our best lead source, despite being a digital agency, is still our clients. I think that says a lot about what we do. Is that our clients are, they all have friends, they all have business associates, and the fact that we've done right by them, they've
Mm,
become our best advocates. So even though we're a digital agency, and you'd think our number one lead flow would come from digital, it's our best customer is actually referred by another customer, so we love those. So we do a lot of work to kind of educate and engage with our existing customers. We actually use digital marketing for that purpose. Like we actually advertise on social media targeting our own customers to teach them about new things that we're doing. We do a lot of email marketing with our existing customers. We have a referral program with our existing customers. We have a lot of sessions with our customers to educate them on new things. And so we use digital marketing to turn our customers into salespeople. Okay. So that is that is our best channel. And I don't see that changing anytime
mm,
soon because we had a lot of success with that. Separate from that, we have a lot of success with search engine optimization. We
mm,
obviously sell search engine optimization. And so we're really focused on SEO, not on vanity metrics like how many words are ranked or whatever. We're very focused on watching what ranks and making sure that we understand where we get conversions to high quality leads that turn into high quality customers, which turn into high quality salespeople for us. So it's vanity metrics kind of rule the day when
mm.
people talk about digital marketing. They get really obsessed with how many followers they have, or how many impressions they have, or how many keywords they rank for. But if that stuff doesn't turn into profit, it's irrelevant. So we do get a lot of business out of our SEO, but we approach it from I think a little bit different way than some other companies do.
No, no, I think it's a great approach because obviously if they've got business owners that are their friends, they already know, like, and trust them. So if it comes from them as a referral, and obviously they've got programs in place, for them to be sufficient, is great. No, it's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Tim.
I think the key there, and I think what potential customers, like but other businesses that are not agencies, can take from this is what is the level of intentionality that you have as a business to turn customers into salespeople. So for example, if you sell beef jerky, right? Let's just say your business sells beef jerky. Yeah, your customers may like your beef jerky, but do they understand why they like it? So if I buy beef jerky from a particular company and that company, their product is totally organic, it doesn't have any chemicals in it, and it's like really, really, really high quality. Okay. Well, as a customer, if I don't know that about this product that I like, then when I'm having a conversation with you and I find out that you like to eat very healthy foods without, chemicals in it, I'm never going to bring up my beef jerky, right? But if I say, oh my gosh, you know what? I know what you mean. I have this one product that I love and it's totally wholesome. I know how to sell the product to you, right? It's not just I have this product or I have this service that I buy and I really love it. They actually are equipped with sales information so that they know how to identify who my target customer is and sell my service for them. So we invest a lot of energy into turning our customers into salespeople, not just promoters of our product.
That's wonderful. I'm glad it's working so well for you, Tim. So, if the audience was trying to find you, where could they look?
Yeah, so they could visit our website, which is whitepeak.io,
Hmm.
and they can schedule some time to talk. And we'll start off by having 30 minutes where we just learn about your business, try to understand what you're trying to accomplish, and we'll provide you some value of some ideas on how you might go about tackling that. If that conversation makes sense for everybody, we can, of course, go from there. But, we start off with a free consultation because we just love talking to entrepreneurs and hearing about their business.
And that's wonderful. Thank you so much for your perspective today, Tim.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to join you.
Awesome. Thank you.